Good evening from Sangamon Auditorium at the University of Illinois-Springfield. I'm Adam Reif, moderator of tonight's debate, anchor, and reporter at News Channel 20 here in Springfield. Welcome to the 2016 Illinois Senate debate between our candidates, Mark Kirk and Tammy Duckworth. This debate is 90 minutes long. It is co-sponsored by the University of Illinois-Springfield, WMAY Radio, the State Journal-Register, and News Channel 20. We ask the audience gathered here to please stay silent throughout the debate, as we want to give all the time and attention to the candidates' answers. But we do invite you to applaud now as we introduce our candidates. We begin with the incumbent, Republican Senator Mark Kirk. And please welcome Democratic Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth. And now let's meet our panelists. From the State Journal-Register, political writer and columnist Bernie Schoenberg. Jim Leach is the news and program director at WMAY Radio. And Jordan Abadea serves as political reporter for News Channel 20. Now, both candidates have agreed to the following rules. We'll alternate who speaks first for each question. The first candidate to respond will get 60 seconds. The second candidate will get 90 seconds response, and then 30 seconds of rebuttal for the first candidate. We begin our debate with 90-second opening statements, and after the coin toss before the debate, Senator Kirk will go first. Senator?
Opening statement time.
Thank you. I would ask the people of Illinois to send me back to another 6-year term so I can continue giving the thoughtful, bipartisan service to the state that includes my record of saving the Export-Import Bank of the United States, which is responsible for over 40,000 jobs right here in Illinois. And put together the bipartisan Kirk-Menendez sanctions that were the entire reason why the Iranians even showed up to negotiate with our president. And I would say that I have laid the groundwork for making sure we have some of the best environmental protections. We're banning sewage dumping in the Great Lakes to protect the source of the drinking water for 30 million Americans.
Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman Duckworth, 90 seconds.
Well, thank you so much for letting me be here today. I'm so proud to be highlighting University of Illinois at Springfield, world-class university. You know, as I've traveled the state, I see so many working families that are like mine. My dad was laid off when he was in his 50s, and there's so many working families that hear the economy is getting better, but they don't see it in their hometowns. What they see are steel mills shutting down, auto plants shutting down, people getting laid off, struggling, trying to make ends meet. I see college students who don't know how they're going to afford to go to college. And I'm running for the United States Senate to fight for working families that are just trying to catch a break, trying to do what they can to get ahead, to make sure their kids have a better life than themselves. And that means we have to have affordable higher education. It means that we must work to provide tax credits for companies that keep jobs here instead of sending jobs overseas. We need to make sure that working families that are just trying to catch a break, if they're not willing to give up on themselves, we shouldn't give up on them either. That's why I'm trying to get to the United States Senate, to fight for everyday hardworking Illinoisans, everyday families that just want to make sure that their children's lives are better than their own. And frankly, they don't see that right now. They don't see that opportunity, that future in front of them the way they did when they were coming up and they felt that they had a better life than their parents. Send me to the United States Senate. I will work hard every single day for the working families of this state. I know what it's like because my family went through it. I went through it. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We now begin with the questioning from the panelists. The first question will be answered by Congresswoman Duckworth first. Bernie Schoenberg, your question.
Thank you. Congresswoman, political reality says that either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump will be the next president. Given factors like WikiLeaks and Access Hollywood, which of those two do you think is better suited to be president, and how will you work with the new president if you are elected?
Well, I think it's clear that Secretary Clinton is probably one of the most qualified nominees for the presidency of the United States in our nation's most recent history. I just voted yesterday, and I voted for her. But regardless of who is president of the United States, we need to come together and work across the aisles. We need to do things like have a hearing on the Supreme Court nominee for the president, whether it is Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. We need to make sure we work to bring jobs right back here to the United States, to our hometowns, to Illinois, And so, the reality is government hasn't worked for the last 2 years. And the way we can get it working again is to make sure that we put aside the partisanship, we put aside the anger, and let's come together and work on the things that are most important to us, which is each other and this great nation. And remember that both Hillary and Donald truly do love America. Thank you.
Senator Kirk, Hillary Clinton or Donald?
I think it's important, given my record that I have served as the glue between Republicans and Democrats, to be a very popular guy in the Senate. The Senate is a very personal institution that if you're as partisan as my opponent, I worry that she will go to war with the 54 Republicans in the Senate. If you're at war with the 54 Republicans in the Senate, you cannot get anything done in the Senate. I have been one of the most bipartisan senators out there, typified by my work with Kirsten Gillibrand to make sure we criminalize gun trafficking to criminal organizations. Because the state of Illinois cannot be the headquarters of Murder Incorporated anymore. I want to make sure we reduce the toll of gun violence in the state.
Congresswoman, 30 seconds of rebuttal if you so choose.
Well, I just let my record in Congress speak for itself. There was a bipartisan bill to help veterans with mental health issues. The bills that I'm co-sponsoring, whether it is some of
whether it may have contributed to controversial comments that you've made in recent years. Can you explain where you are in your recovery physically and mentally, and how you will handle the rigors of this demanding job?
I would say that the stroke has made me much stronger as a senator. When you conquer something as difficult as a stroke, you get in there and you're going to fight to make sure you deliver for the people of Illinois.
Congresswoman Duckworth, is the senator's health a legitimate issue in this race?
No, I think the senator is perfectly capable of doing his job.
I would say that we both agree on one key point, that we both think the next senator for Illinois should use a wheelchair.
Congresswoman, go ahead.
Thank you. Am I back at 90 seconds then?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
great. Thank you. Just checking. Well, look, I think the senator is perfectly capable of doing his job. The concern I have is he's not doing his job. The fact of the matter is he touts his leadership on Merrick Garland and the Supreme Court nomination, but he met with Merrick Garland in March. He said he called on his colleagues to hold a hearing, but nothing has happened. It's October. I also wonder about a senator who calls the president the drug dealer in chief, or back in 2007 said that one of the best things that we can do to combat illegal immigration from Mexico is to send contraceptives free to Mexico. These are not solutions that help. And frankly, even his recent votes, he voted against the Equal Pay Act for women and called it the most sexist legislation ever. He voted against allowing students to refinance student loan debt. He even traveled to China and told the Chinese not to invest in America because we were not a good bet. These are not all the hallmarks of a senator who's looking out for the people of Illinois. And the people of Illinois deserve someone who's going to fight for them every single day. Because let me tell you something. When I was in Granite City and I met with steelworkers who were laid off 2 days after Christmas, they didn't want to hear that their senator had gone to China and told the Chinese not to invest in America. What they wanted was a senator who's going to fight for them every single day, and I will be that person because I've lived their lives. I've been on food stamps. I've relied on student loans. I still am paying off student loan debt. I know what it's like, and I think that it's time we have a senator who does his job.
Senator, 30 seconds if you choose.
I would say that when we talked about drug dealers, that I strongly oppose the $400 million ransom payment that the president made in cash to the Iranians, even after he is certified that they are the state sponsor of terror. Those drug dealer words are not mine. They're the words of the European Union. Remember, the European Union canceled the printing of the 500-euro note because they said it. Most of the payment, $400 million, was in 500-euro notes. If you do the math there, 800,000 500-euro notes were in that payment. They canceled the printing of the 500-euro note because the European, and this is to quote them directly, they said the note was too involved in drug dealing and terror.
Thank you, Senator. Our next question comes from Jordan Abadea. Congresswoman Duckworth will answer first.
Congresswoman, you are facing a lawsuit right now from former employees who worked under you when you were the director of the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs. They claim there was retaliation after claims of abuse and corruption were brought to light. You have claimed this is a politically motivated lawsuit. Why should voters trust that you can be an advocate for veterans after that?
Well, from the first day that I woke up in Walter Reed in my hospital bed, I've been working on veterans issues. In fact, I got into politics because I met then Senator Barack Obama, who was on the Veterans Affairs Committee, and as a patient, I was calling him and Senator Durbin saying, look, we're not doing right by our vets and we need to do more. And every day that I wake up, I look in that mirror and I do what I can for veterans. I will always honor the sacrifices my buddies made to save my life, and that means that I will continue to work on the programs I've always worked on, ending veterans homelessness, greater outreach to female veterans. I started the only veterans mental health hotline in the entire nation that was 24/7, right here in Illinois, even before the VA had theirs. I opened up the Office for Online Communications to do outreach to young vets. You know, veterans are my life's work. I will never leave my vets behind because my buddies didn't leave me behind. And so I'm not going to let political stunts stop me from doing what I truly feel is my calling, taking care of my vets.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Kirk, you have 90 seconds.
Senator Kirk, is this a political stunt?
No. I would say that the record of my opponent in serving veterans is really questionable. We see right in the front row here several whistleblowers who have been quite critical of you, not my words, but their words, of the people who directly served you. For Denise, for Chris Goins out there, I want to make sure that after 22 years of service in the Hannah VA, that she spoke up when the director of the facility went down to the public assistance office to ask anybody here who want to work for veterans, and a convicted felon, Jesse Bell, was invited in, even after being convicted for elder abuse. And after he first met with a veteran, he reduced that veteran to tears. And these brave women said, we cannot let this person into the VA. And these whistleblowers should be commended and applauded, not crushed like Tammy. You fired them directly just because they said how you were caring badly for veterans. I think that shouldn't have been done.
Congresswoman, 30 seconds.
Well, you know, Senator, you and I both know that that's not true. The lawsuit has been thrown out of court at least 2 times fully and
Actually,
1 time
it's
in part.
important, Tammy, not to lie to the people of Illinois. The lawsuit has not been thrown out, and if you'd like to talk to the plaintiffs, they're right here. I just met with them this afternoon. They said they had rejected the settlement.
I'm sorry, do I get my time now?
Sorry, when you're lying, you don't get any time.
Congresswoman, go ahead.
Thank you, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please. Congresswoman, your time.
Reclaiming my time. As I said, the lawsuit has been thrown out, dismissed at least 2 times fully, 1 part
Tammy, it
partially,
has not been
and
thrown out. The
judge
litigants are
called
right here. Everybody should just let her. It's important not to lie direct to these people.
Senator, let's give Congresswoman a chance, and then we'll hear from you in a moment.
So well, this is the last 30 seconds. Is this mine? Okay.
We'll restart the clock.
All right, thank you. As I said, the lawsuit has been thrown out of court 2 times fully, and again, in part, the judge called it a common workplace complaint. It has been settled for nuisance value, which was the description of the latest settlement. As I said again, I am proud of my record for veterans. I will not let political stunts, I will not let the threat of lawsuits or political commercials stop me from doing what's right by veterans. From the first day that I woke up in Walter Reed, I've been working on veterans. They are my life's work. And frankly, you can threaten to sue me as much as you want, but if you don't do your job for veterans and you're a government employee, then I will come after you.
Thank you very much. Let's move on here. A question from Bernie Schoenberg. Senator Kirk, you will respond first.
Senator Kirk, you have admitted past mistakes in how you or your campaign or office had communicated your military record, including your admission that you may not have been shot at while flying intelligence missions over Iraq, and an overstatement of the case when you said you commanded the Pentagon War Room. As evidenced by your news conference today with these women who say that Representative Duckworth didn't heed their statements about bad treatment of patients, veterans issues are a key part in this race. Given that, what would you say to voters who may be concerned about your past statements or misstatements about your record?
Ernie, I would say that my past misstatements on my record have been small and selfish, and I only hurt myself. I didn't hurt veterans like my opponent, who hurt many veterans who died waiting in line when her cronies were manipulating the waiting list, as we heard about, in return for bribes at the Anna facility. If you'd like to know about the people who witnessed that corruption on your part, are right here.
Representative Duckworth, sounds like your turn.
Thank you. I'm proud of the fact that we added 80 beds at the LaSalle Veterans Home when I was at the IDVA. We have veterans waiting, and perhaps folks in Chicago don't pay as much attention to what happens down here in central Illinois and further down south in southern Illinois, but it was really important to open those 80 beds to take care of the veterans here in central Illinois so that they had a place to go because there were long waiting lists. I think that what the people of Illinois needs is a senator who's going to work for them, who's going to serve them, who's going to get up every single day and work to make sure that working families have a shot at the American dream, but that also that we stand by our veterans. One of the problems that we have in this country is that when we send our troops to war, we don't talk about the fact that we will be caring for our veterans for the next 60 years if we're lucky. Iraq and Afghanistan veterans are in their 20s. For the next 60 years, we'll be caring for them. That's a cost of war that we should be talking about. And if you send me to the United States Senate, I will be there every single day reminding my colleagues that when you go to war and you make these decisions, we are making a lifelong commitment to our vets. That means that we have to make sure that when they come home, there are jobs for them, which is why I passed the Troop Talent Act. That's why we need to make sure that they don't end up on the streets, the very same streets they defended, which is why I worked on homeless veterans. That's why we have to remember that women are veterans too, and we have to provide services to them. As I said, veterans are my life's work, and I will be doing this long after I serve in government, and as long as I am breathing, I will advocate for my vets.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator, 30 seconds if you choose.
I would say that in my work for veterans, I am very honored that as chairman of the VA Subcommittee of Senate Appropriations, I have put together the pending legislation, which is now before the Senate, the largest veteran spending bill in the history of the country. $71.5 billion to take care of the 25 million veterans of this country. In my work for the veterans of the state, I was able to put together the Naval Hospital Great Lakes with the North Chicago VA. And because it's a joint Navy VA facility, I would argue that it's now the best VA in the country. If you look at that best VA in the country, when you look at all the corruption of the U.S. Department, I didn't have problems ever like my opponent had when the Inspector General of VA went after her, when she wasted $5.1 million on a treatment program to make sure that Veterans Outreach could be
Senator, that's time. Thank you very
and
much.
no one showed up for her program.
Thank you, Senator. We'll move on to the next question from Jim Leach. Congresswoman Duckworth will be first to respond. Jim?
I want to move from veterans issues to active duty military. As America battles the Islamic State group, do you support the increased use of American boots on the ground in places like Iraq and Syria? If not, what would your strategy be for the defeat of ISIS?
Well, first and foremost, we must destroy ISIS. They are an enemy of the United States and all freedom-loving people. They are butchers and they are criminals. I support the use of drones and some smart airstrikes, surgical airstrikes, but I do not support further sending of American troops to foreign lands to fight ISIS unless the American people has authorized it. You know, one of the problems we have right now is that we have American troops serving overseas that Americans don't even know about. Do you know that there are 5,000 Americans on the ground in Iraq right now supporting the Iraqi military as they fight to take over Mosul? An important job, but the American people need to know that. More importantly, our men and women in uniform deserve to have the full support of the American people behind them, and they can't have that if we don't know who's over there. So while I support the U.S. taking a lead and going after destroying ISIS, I want to make sure our allies do their part. This is their backyard. Where's Saudi Arabia stepping up? Part of their policies is what created ISIS in the first place. Where is all of our allies who should be taking the lead? And that's going to be the focus of my policies.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Kirk, 90 seconds.
The best way to defeat ISIS is to use Iraqi troops boots over ground, and by that, with us serving as the Air Force for the Iraqi government. As they move towards Mosul, I hope that when they enter pockets of opposition, the United States Air Force can take care of it for the Iraqi government. It's much better to take care of this problem with Islamic troops who speak Arabic that are from the area. And I think with that, the current policy is the right way to go in defeating ISIS.
Congresswoman, 30 seconds if you choose.
I think the senator has just called for use of more United States Air Force over these areas. And my concern there is that having been a downed aviator behind enemy lines fighting for my life, I know that when you send additional aircraft, you also need additional pathfinders on the ground, you need additional search and rescue on the ground, you need additional logistics. If we're going to do that, then the American people deserve to have an understanding of what we're committing ourselves to. This is not a decision Congress can just make on its own or that the administration should make on its own. We need to do this with full knowledge of American people if that's the decision we think we need to do.
Thank you very much. We move on to the next question from Bernie Schoenberg. Congresswoman Duckworth, first to respond.
Congresswoman,
I'm sorry, I slipped up. Pardon me.
that's okay.
This will be Senator Kirk, first to respond to Jordan's question.
All right. Last week, an Army sergeant from Fairview, Illinois, was killed by enemy forces in Kabul. It's a stark reminder that U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East does continue to have critical consequences for Americans and American families. And ISIS isn't our only problem. So do you, Senator, have a long-term policy for what you think American influence should be in the Middle East?
And the long-term policy to support the elected government of Iraq, to make sure that we do it with boots over ground. I understand that you need people that are called JTACs sometimes to guide our forces to hit the right targets. I think that's the best way to do it. With a minimal U.S. presence and special forces and training like the President is doing, I have not heard that, Tammy, you opposed the President's current policy. I didn't know that.
Congresswoman?
Well, I think that the U.S. does need to have a role and a leadership role in the Middle East, and that means that we must force our allies to do their jobs. Holding the Iraqis accountable and leading the fight in Mosul is incredibly important. But we also have other allies who need to step up. In the attack on Mosul right now, for example, the Peshmerga, which are the Kurdish forces that are fighting, I mean, some of the bravest fighters I've ever had personal privilege to witness, are fighting ISIS on one front, but our Turkish ally and NATO allies attacking them from the rear. We need to hold our allies accountable and make them work together with us. This is where, we exert influence, but we don't need to be sending troops over there right away. But any type of an engagement that we participate in, for example, in Syria, I think needs to include removal of Assad. He is a butcher. He has killed and murdered scores of innocents. But we can't do it on our own. And I want to be in the Senate. You know, my family has served this nation in uniform, going back to the Revolution. I'm a daughter of the American Revolution. I've bled for this nation. But I still want to be there in the Senate when the drums of war sound, because people are quick to sound the drums of war, and I want to be there to say, this is what it costs. This is what you're asking us to do. And if that's the case, I'll go. Families like mine are the ones that bleed first. But let's make sure the American people understand what we are engaging in, and let's hold our allies accountable, because we can't do it all.
Senator Kirk, 30 seconds to rebut.
I had forgotten that your parents came all the way from Thailand to serve George Washington.
Move on to the next question. This is Bernie Schoenberg. Now your chance. We'll start with Congresswoman Duckworth, first to respond.
And you're welcome to take some time if you want to respond to that, too.
Sure. There's been members of my family serving in uniform on my father's side, going back to the Revolution. I belong to the William J. Penny chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution right here. And if you go to Mount Vernon, Illinois, you'll see a statue of me put up by the Daughters of the American Revolution next to one of our great patriots, Molly Pitcher, one of the first women to pick up her husband's and then take her husband's position during the Revolution. I'm proud of both my father's side and my mother, who's an immigrant. She became an American citizen in her 50s, and I'm just as proud of that.
Let me get in one last question here before we finish this side.
Sure, Bernie.
Back to Congresswoman Duckworth. The U.S. allowed more than 12,000 Syrian refugees into the country in the past year, and during your campaign, both of you have clashed concerning what is the correct number, if any. Senator Kirk has also suggested a safe zone in Jordan as an alternative location for those from war-torn Syria. That more refugees from the Nazis.
How we are supposed to represent as a